The Mandukya Upanishad is the shortest of all the Upanishads, and is assigned to Atharvaveda. It is listed as number 6 in the Muktikā canon of 108 Upanishads. It is in prose, consisting of 12 terse verses, and is associated with the Rig Vedic school of scholars. It discusses the syllable Om, presents the theory of 4 states of consciousness, asserts the existence and nature of Atman. The Mandukya Upanishad is notable for having been recommended in the Muktikā Upanishad through 2 central characters of the Ramayana. Is the one Upanishad that alone is sufficient for knowledge to gain moksha, and is first in its list of 11 principal Upanishads. The text is also notable for inspiring Gaudapada's Karika, a classic for the Vedanta school of Hinduism. Mandukya Upanishad is among the oft-cited texts on chronology and philosophical relationship between Hinduism and Buddhism. Etymology. The root of Mandukya is sometimes considered as Mandukya, which literally has several meanings. It means frog, a particular breed of horse, the sole of horse's hoof, or a kind of coitus. Some writers have suggested the frog as the etymological root for Mandukya Upanishad. Another root for the Upanishad's name is Mandukya, which literally is a Vedic school, or means a teacher. Paul Derson states the etymological roots of Mandukya Upanishad to be a half-lost school of Rig Veda. This school may be related to the scholar named Hrasva Mandukya, whose theory of semivowels is discussed in Aitara or Aranyaka of Rig Veda. Applying the rules of Sandhi, the text is also called Māṇḍūkya Upanishad. Chronology in authorship. Chronology. The chronology of Mandukya Upanishad, like other Upanishads, is uncertain and contested. The chronology is difficult to resolve because all opinions rest on scanty evidence, and analysis of archaism, style and repetitions across texts, driven by assumptions about likely evolution of ideas, and on presumptions about which philosophy might have influenced which other Indian philosophies. Nakamura dates the Mandukya Upanishad to about the 1st to 2nd centuries A.D. Richard King too dates the Mandukya Upanishad at the first 2 centuries of the Common Era. Olivelle states, "We have the 2 late prose Upanishads, the Prashna and the Mandukya, which cannot be much older than the beginning of the Common Era." Mahoney, on the other hand, states that Mandukya Upanishad probably emerged in the late 5th and early 4th centuries BCE, along with Prashna and Maiti Upanishads. Phillips lists Mandukya Upanishad before and about the time the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, the Maiti Upanishad, as well as the first Buddhist Pali and Jaina canonical texts were composed. Ranade posits a view similar to Phillips, placing Mandukya's chronological composition in the 5th, that is the last group of ancient principal Upanishads. Chronological roots. The foundation of several theories in the Mandukya Upanishad are found in chronologically more ancient Sanskrit texts. For example, chapters 8.7 through 8.12 of Chandogya Upanishad discuss the 4 states of consciousness as awake, dream-filled sleep, deep sleep, and beyond deep sleep. Authorship. The text of the Mandukya Upanishad is fully incorporated in the Mandukya Karika, a commentary attributed to the 6th century CE Gaudapada, and is not known to exist independent of this commentary. Iziva states that some scholars, including Paul Derson, presumed that Gaudapada may be its author. However, there is no historical or textual evidence for this hypothesis. Scholars consider Mandukya Upanishad as a principal Upanishad with more ancient origins. Structure. In contrast to the older Upanishads, the Mandukya Upanishad is very short, with clear and concise formulations. It has 12 terse prose paragraphs. Contents. The Mandukya Upanishad is an important Upanishad in Hinduism, particularly to its Advaita Vedanta school. It tersely presents several central doctrines, namely that the universe is Brahman, the self exists and is Brahman, and the four states of consciousness. The Mandukya Upanishad also presents several theories about the syllable Om, and that it symbolizes self. In the Mandukya Upanishad, the Mandukya Upanishad opens by declaring, Om. This syllable is this whole world. Thereafter it presents various explanations and theories on what it means and signifies. This discussion is built on a structure of 4/4 or fourfold, derived from A plus U plus M plus silence. As all states of time. In verse 1, the Upanishad states that time is threefold: the past, the present and the future, that these three are Aum. The 4/4 of time is that which transcends time, that too is Aum expressed. As all states of Atman. In verse 2, states the Upanishad, everything is Brahman, but Brahman is Atman, and that the Atman is fourfold. As all states of consciousness. In verses 3 to 6, the Mandukya Upanishad enumerates four states of consciousness: wakeful, dream, deep sleep and the state of akatma. These four are A plus U plus M plus without an element, respectively. As all of etymological knowledge. In verses 9 to 12, the Mandukya Upanishad enumerates fourfold etymological roots of the syllable Aum. It states that the first element of Aum is Et, which is from Aptya from Adimatva. The second element is U, which is from Utkasa from Abhyatva. The third element is M, from Mitya from Mimanati, or Arpiti. The fourth is without an element, without development, beyond the expanse of universe. In this way, states the Upanishad, the syllable Om is the Atman indeed. Four states of consciousness. The Mandukya Upanishad describes four states of consciousness, namely waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, which correspond to the three bodies doctrine. The first state is the waking state, in which we are aware of our daily world. It is described as outward knowing, gross and universal. This is the gross body. The second state is the dreaming mind. It is described as inward knowing, subtle and burning. This is the subtle body. The third state is the state of deep sleep. In this state the underlying ground of consciousness is undistracted, the Lord of all, the knower of all, the inner controller, the source of all, the origin and dissolution of created things. This is the causal body. The fourth factor is Turiya, pure consciousness. It is the background that underlies and transcends the three common states of consciousness. In this consciousness, both absolute and relative, Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman, are transcended. It is the true state of experience of the infinite and non-different, free from the dualistic experience which results from the attempts to conceptualize reality. It is the state in which Ajatavada, non-origination, is apprehended. Theory and nature of Atman. The verses 3 through 7 discuss four states of Atman. The verse 3 of the Upanishad describes the first state of self as outwardly cognitive with 7 limbs, 19 mouths, enjoying the gross, a state of self common in all of human beings. The Mandukya Upanishad, in verse 4, asserts the second state of self as inwardly cognitive with 7 limbs, 19 mouths, enjoying the exquisite, a state of brilliant self. The Upanishads verse 5 states the third state of self as one without desire or anticipations, where pure conscience is his only mouth, where he is in unified cognition, enjoying the delight, a state of blissful self. The verses 6 and 7 of the Upanishad states the fourth state of self as one beyond all the three, beyond extrospective state. beyond introspective state, beyond cognitive state, the state of Ekatmu Pratyayusara, tranquil, by 9 Advaita. He then is the self-just Atman, the one which should be discerned. Johnston summarizes these four states of self, respectively, as seeking the physical, seeking inner thought, seeking the causes and spiritual consciousness, and the fourth state is realizing oneness with the self, the eternal. Similarities and differences with Buddhist teachings. Scholars contest whether Māṇḍūkya Upanishad was influenced by Buddhist theories along with the similarities and differences between Buddhism and Hinduism in light of the text. According to Hajime Nakamura, the Māṇḍūkya Upanishad was influenced by Mahayana Buddhism and its concept of sunyata. Nakamura states, many particular Buddhist terms or uniquely Buddhist modes of expression may be found in it, such as adrsta, avyavaharya, agraya, alaksana, asintut prapankopasama. According to Randall Collins, the Mandukya Upanishad includes phrases found in the Prajnaparamita Sutras of Mahayana Buddhism. According to Michael Comans, Vidushakara also notes that the term Prapankopasama does not appear in pre-Buddhist Brahmanic works, but in contrast to Nakamura he does not conclude that the term was taken over from Mahayana Buddhism. According to Comans, eventual Mahayana origins of this term are no more than a possibility, and not a certainty. Comans also disagrees with Nakamura's thesis that the fourth realm was perhaps influenced by the sunyata of Mahayana Buddhism. Quote, according to Comans, it is impossible to see how the unequivocal teaching of a permanent, underlying reality, which is explicitly called the self, could show early Mahayana influence. Comans further refers to Nakamura himself, who notes that later Mahayana sutras such as the Lankavatara Sutra and the concept of Buddha nature were influenced by Vedantic thought. Comans concludes that here can be no suggestion that the teaching about the underlying self as contained in the Māṇḍūkya shows any trace of Buddhist thought. This teaching can be traced to the pre-Buddhist Brahmanyaka Upanishad. Jacobs lists adrsta and other terms in more ancient pre-Buddhist literature such as the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Isiva states that there are differences in the teachings in the texts of Buddhism and the Mandukya Upanishad of Hinduism, because the latter asserts that Chitta consciousness is identical with the eternal and immutable Atman, soul, self of the Upanishads. In other words, Mandukya Upanishad and Gaudapada affirm the soul exists, while Buddhist schools affirm that there is no soul or self. Reception. Muktikā Upanishad. Rama and Hanuman of the Hindu epic Ramayana in Muktikā Upanishad discuss moksha. Rama therein recommends Mandukya as first among 108 Upanishads, as follows. Classical commentators. Gaudapada, one of the first known extant metrical commentary on this Upanishad, was written by Gaudapada. This commentary, called the Mandukya, is the earliest known systematic exposition of Advaita Vedanta. Raju states that Gaudapada took over the Buddhist doctrines that ultimate reality is pure consciousness, and the four-cornered negation. Raju further states that Gaudapada weaved into a philosophy of the Mandukya Upanishad, which was further developed by Shankara. Other scholars such as Murti state that while there is shared terminology, the doctrines of Gaudapada and Buddhism are fundamentally different. Shankaracharya, a disciple of Govindapada, who himself was either a direct or a distant disciple of Gaudapada, further made commentaries on Gaudapada Mandukya. Mandukya Upanishad forms one of the basis of Advaita Vedanta as expounded by Shankaracharya. Madhvacharya, the proponent founder of Dvaita Vedanta, has written commentaries on Mandukya Upanishad and offers an emotional and theistic perspective of the scripture, and attributes them to Ruti. His commentary based on Bhakti Yoga and uses Vishnu and his attributes as of similes for deciphering shlokas of Mandukya Upanishad. Sikh translation. According to Sikh scholars, the Mandukya Upanishad is one of the most fascinating Upanishads ever written, as it deals with the four states of being and was translated in Anandpur in 1689 under the patronage of Guru Gobind Singh. Modern commentators, according to Aurobindo, Brahman, which has the potentiality of becoming, has created out an existence which has a relation between itself, this existence with its experience of becoming and having relation with the Absolute, is called as Sola Purusha. The principle of power of becoming is called as Natura Prakriti. Swami Rama has provided an interpretation of this Upanishad from the experiential standpoint in his commentary Enlightenment Without God. Ranade calls the aphoristic style of Mandukya Upanishad as highly influential on the sutras of Indian philosophies that followed it, and that the Upanishad has served as a foundational text of the major Vedanta school of Hinduism. He states, "We are told how the syllable Om is verily all that exists. Under it is included all the past, the present and the future, as well as that which transcends time. Verily all this is Brahman. The Atman is Brahman. This Atman is four-footed. The first foot is the Vaisvanara, who enjoys gross things, in the state of wakefulness. The second foot is the Taijasa, who enjoys exquisite things in the state of dream. The third is the Prajna, who enjoys bliss in the state of deep sleep. The fourth is Atman, who is alone without a second, calm, holy and tranquil." This passage has been verily the basis upon which all the later systems of Vedantic philosophy have come to be built. Ranade's views on the importance of Mandukya Upanishad and Gaudapada's commentary on Vedanta school, particularly Advaita Vedanta sub-school of Hinduism, is shared by modern-era scholars such as Hacker, Vetter and others. Johnston states that Mandukya Upanishad must be read in two layers: consciousness and vehicles of consciousness, soul and nature of soul, the empirical and the eternal. The text aphoristically condenses these layers of message both in literal and metaphorical sense. William Butler Yeats, the Irish poet, was inspired by the Upanishads, and Mandukya Upanishad were among texts he commented on. David Stoll's 1987 piano quartet is inspired by three Upanishads, one being Mandukya Upanishad, other two being Katha and Isha Upanishads.